So I've been using the 15-inch MacBook Air for a bit now, and this really feels like the perfect computer for most consumers, so let's delve into my thoughts. For many years, I've wanted a larger version of the MacBook Air because I personally find the base level chips plenty good for my use, and so if I could get the larger screen the 16-inch offers without the additional cost, this would be perfect. And Apple's finally offering exactly that. Now let's first cover the two big advantages the 15-inch has compared to the 13-inch, and that begins with the display. Last year when I was testing the 13-inch, I noted that the increase from 13.3 inches on the M1 Air to 13.6 inches with the M2 Air did not result in much of a difference when it came to daily use, and to be honest, I wasn't really gaining any useful real estate. I'm happy to say though that as one expects, the 15.3-inch panel on this new machine does make a massive difference, and particularly for editing, I've appreciated having a much larger display. But obviously, I know many are likely not going to be editing on this, and so the bigger display makes a difference for most of you guys when watching YouTube or Netflix on this, and also when multitasking, because you have a lot more space to work with, and so split screening on this has been a treat. And because this is still an Air, I don't think you're compromising a lot weight-wise. Now yes, I know the 13-inch is still a little more compact, but this is not as bulky as the 16-inch and really gives you the best of both worlds, like I always wanted. And by the way, would like to remind you guys, like this video and subscribe for more content like this, it would be appreciated. Anyways, coming back to the panel on this, the specs of it are not particularly special to be honest. This has no mini LED or 120Hz, but actually I don't mind the lack of these features. Apple's LCDs are very solid, and this still offers P3 support with 500 nits of brightness and True Tone, and with this essentially being the same display Apple's been selling for years on all their MacBooks, I'm very sure most are going to be fine with this, and as someone who's had the M1 Air that has a very similar display to this, I can assure you the displays on these MacBook Airs are very good. The second significant upgrade the 15-inch has over the 13-inch are the speakers. This has 6 of them compared to the 4 on the smaller size, and also includes, and I quote, force cancelling woofers, whatever that means. But yes, in terms of day-to-day usage, the larger chassis with the additional speakers makes a big difference, and it's a treat to kick back and watch movies on this, especially with the larger display. So yeah, this will be a big selling point for the 15-inch, and here's a quick sample for you guys. So those are the main two things that swayed me towards this bigger size, but because it's based on the already fantastic 13-inch, the overall package here is very solid. Beginning with the design, yes, I do miss the wedge the M1 models had, but apart from that, this is a design that works, and it's crazy how thin this is. I also like the rounder corners on this compared to the sharper corners on the M1 Air because those scratch and dent pretty easily, so yes, that's a nice change. And also the notch does not put me off, guys. I usually forget it's there in the first place, so yes, I like the design a lot. Also, side note guys, this silver is gorgeous. I know everyone's still probably gonna get midnight because it's the fancy exclusive color for the Air, but to be honest, I have heard about issues with the coating on those MacBooks. I personally prefer the classic silver. Now moving to performance, we unfortunately have M2 in this. I say unfortunately because we were hoping this Mac would debut with M3, which of course would be Apple jumping to 3nm, and in layman's terms, that should substantially improve the battery life and the efficiency of the SoC, so yes, I was looking forward to this, but because there's been production issues with the M3, Apple stuck to M2 with this, and ultimately, while I was initially pissed off by this, I have mostly accepted this. You see, at the end of the day, I've been using M1 with absolutely no issues, and so coming to M2, yes, it's not that big of an upgrade on paper, but the improvements are appreciated nevertheless. Particularly for myself, because I do edit videos, the inclusion of a few new encoders and decoders are pretty handy, and so exporting videos on this is much faster. Also, fun fact guys, due to the larger body, the 15-inch does perform slightly better than the smaller 13-inch, benchmarks wise, but this honestly makes no real difference when it comes to real life usage. Now I know back when the M2 launched with the 13-inch, there was massive controversy regarding it throttling, and to be honest, This was kinda overblown, but anyways, for those curious, this 15-inch has been my main machine editing all the videos I upload on this channel, and just like the M1 Air, I've had no issues. Not once did this Mac struggle on me, so yes, that's pretty impressive, and there's no thermal throttling issues I've picked up on. Now yes, I know my content's pretty basic, but this is still a much more intensive workflow for a MacBook Air compared to what regular folks do on these. So the fact I've had no issues should tell you that this machine's gonna be more than fine performance-wise for many of you guys. So yes, if you're someone who's a student and you're typing documents up on this and watching videos, or you're a regular consumer planning to do a bit of web browsing and emailing on this, you should have absolutely zero issues. There is no thermal throttling on this. I do also want to mention I've been testing the base version, which is the model most are going to get, and as was the case with the 13-inch, Apple has made the SSD slow on this. Now does it suck Apple's doing this? Yes, absolutely, but are you going to realistically see a massive difference? Honestly, no. I'm coming from an M1 Air that of course has a faster drive inside, but I've genuinely had zero issues, and considering the 15-inch was a lot cheaper than expected, I'm not too mad about this compromise. And the RAM situation really did surprise me because I got the M1 Air with 16 gigs in case 8 gigs was not sufficient for editing, but no, I've yet to have an issue with this. There's been no pop-up saying I've run out of RAM on this, and also there's been no issues with the memory swap on this because of the slower SSD inside. I would still likely get more RAM in this to future-proof it and have that headroom for editing, but if I was on a strict budget, this base model is surprisingly good value, guys. And once again, for regular usage, there should be no issues. Moving to the FaceTime camera on this, it's respectable, but do remember this is still a webcam. I remember getting hyped about the upgrade to 1080p on this back when the 13-inch launched, but it's really not that much better than the old 720p sensor the M1 Air had. I think it's because the ISP with the M1 makes up for the lack of resolution, but anyways, the moral of the story is webcams do suck in general, and so if you do want the crispiest footage possible, connect your iPhone to this, but for the occasional Zoom call and FaceTime sessions, this webcam is decent. The mics, however, are very solid, as is the case for most Macs. I've been told by friends I sound crisp and clear with this, so yes, for the occasional Discord call, the mics are excellent, and here's a sample for you guys. And here's a webcam test for you guys. I should sound pretty good. The visuals should be decent enough. So yeah, let me know how this is. The keyboard is also fantastic on this. I know some have mentioned these new Macs have misshier keys compared to the M1 model, but that's not been the case in my experience. They're still very solid. The larger trackpad this also has is perfection. Every time I use a Mac, I come to appreciate how incredible Apple's trackpads are, because when I used to use Windows laptops, that was one thing that consistently sucked on all of them, and it seems Apple's really the only manufacturer that can nail this. And yes, I love their trackpads. Touch ID has also been reliable, though I can't lie guys, I do hope Apple gives us Face ID one day, because just opening the lid and the laptop instantly recognizing you would be so clutch. And with that massive notch, I'm sure Apple could fit a few Face ID sensors to give us this technology on the Macs. In fact, Face ID makes more sense here compared to iPhones and iPads, and could be Apple's answer to Windows Hello. So yes, I'm very much hoping this is still in the works. Coming to ports, this actually has been a game changer for me compared to the M1 Air, and that's because we have MagSafe. Now it's actually not to do with the faster charging or the fact it gives you a very satisfying magnetic connection that easily comes off, but it's more to do with the fact I essentially now have an additional port. You see, with the M1 Air, I would have to use one USB-C port for charging, and so for any other peripherals, I would only have one port left on the machine, which I could live with, but was ultimately a tad limiting. And now with the 15-inch, I have two ports that are free for peripherals, and I do greatly appreciate this. The battery life is also an aspect that's very good with the 15-inch, but could have been better. Now don't get me wrong guys, as has been the case with all Apple Silicon Macs, these machines offer insane endurance. For example, I was editing on this for 2 hours and it went from 100% to only 87%, which is incredible because back when I had Intel, my MacBook would be close to dead by the time I finish editing, and so this is easily the best thing about these Apple Silicon Macs. They last forever, and especially for regular consumers, you're going to love the battery life on the 15-inch. And so why do I say it could have been better? Well, that's because this offers the exact same battery life as the smaller 13-inch MacBooks, and so I was under the assumption the 15-inch would offer battery life close to the 16-inch, but if I were to guess, A, the display is a lot more power hungry than I initially expected, B, they could not give us a massive battery inside because of how thin this is, but also C, Apple does not want this cannibalizing sales of the 16-inch, and I guess if you want the best battery life, Apple definitely wants to upsell you to that, but as I said, for most consumers, the 15-inch's battery life is still plenty good. So those are basically all my thoughts regarding this machine, and I've really been impressed by this. I absolutely love the larger display and speakers, and make a difference for what I use a MacBook for, and also remember this is not too unwieldy and has the same portability for the most part as the 13-inch, and the performance has been great on this base version. So yes guys, if this meets your requirements, I would highly recommend getting this, and it's now my go-to recommendation for most consumers. Now I know people are going to ask two questions. Firstly, should I get this or the 13-inch? And to that I would say go see them in person because ultimately it depends on your preferences, but I think spending the extra $200 on the 15-inch is worth it for the larger screen and speakers. And secondly, should I get this over the 16-inch M1 Pro MacBook Pro that of course has massively dropped in price? And well, that depends. If you're going for the base version, then go for the 15-inch because I doubt you'll find a 16-inch for $1,300, but if you consider upgrading the RAM or storage on the 15-inch, then the price slowly creeps up, and in that instance, I can see why you would go with the 16-inch for the better raw specs, but if I'm being honest guys, you could justify getting the 15-inch instead, just because it's way more compact. Anyways, let me know your thoughts in the comments, make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this, and thank you for watching.